Yucca Drive here on the west side has always had a problem. It's called speeding. I can't begin to tell you how often I get frustrated and even angered by the willful mismanagement of taxpayers' money here in the state of New Mexico. Politicians and public officials here seem to think that every resident of this state is either too stupid or just doesn't care what they do with our money. What happened to integrity and common sense in America? What happened to common sense in government spending altogether? I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure all of you will agree with me. There's no such thing as common sense in government decision making in this state, especially when there's an unlimited supply of taxpayers' money laying around. I decided to do this video because I was totally befuddled when I saw the Yucca Drive traffic calming project that was being put into place by the city of Albuquerque. Sure, I can see where part of the design might be effective, but overall, I think it's incredibly over-designed, does little to actually correct the problem of speeding in the area, but most importantly, it's just not a cost-effective way to use taxpayers' money. Don't these city planners have any common sense? As I stated earlier, this video came about because of a speeding problem on a street near my mother-in-law's house called Yucca Drive. It's a neighborhood street. It has 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs posted everywhere, but it might as well be the Indianapolis 500 racetrack, because people love to race up and down this street. Incidentally, and I didn't know this until my wife told me, the Unser family, you know, those guys famous for racing at Indianapolis, actually lived on Yucca Drive during the 60s, right next door to my mother-in-law. Yucca Drive, Unser family, speeding, Indianapolis 500. Speeders routinely speed up and down this street at 40, 50, even 60 miles an hour on a 25-mile-an-hour street. For decades, residents have complained to city leaders to do something about the speeding, but it kept falling on deaf ears. Finally, after several disastrous situations, the city finally decided to do something. Interestingly enough, several years ago, a portion of North Yucca Drive, all the way past, I think it's called Palisades Drive, had speed bumps involved. Guess what? No more speeding in that area. Yeah, amazing. And at about the same time, a majority of the major streets and many of the smaller streets surrounding Yucca Drive also had speed bumps installed. No more speeding in those areas either. But for some reason, the 3-block area right in front of Pat Hurley Park and the 4-block area to the south of Pat Hurley Park don't have any speed bumps. But they do have lots of speeding. Go figure. A simple, quick, logical, and common sense solution is put speed bumps in the areas where people are speeding. Voila! Problem solved. But when the city of Albuquerque looked at the way to solve the speeding problem on Yucca Drive, do you think they came up with the same simple solution? No, of course not. Instead, they commissioned a fancy consulting firm to conduct a costly traffic study to come up with a traffic design at taxpayers' expense. It's called the Yucca Drive traffic calming design project. The design consists of narrowing down the street, adding street markings and signs, adding vertical speed barriers, and adding a bike lane. At taxpayers' expense. Not to worry though, those pesky little taxpayers have lots of money to burn. All of this planning took place during the COVID lockdown period. Therefore, the city of Albuquerque held these virtual meetings to discuss their Yucca design project. And at the request of my 95-year-old mother-in-law, I attended on her behalf. Upon seeing the design plan all laid out, I was puzzled. I raised my hand and I said, excuse me, the problem still exists. They responded, what do you mean the problem still exists? And I said, well, your design, the 3-block section of Yucca between the 2 roundabouts that you want installed, that's where most of the speeding takes place. And it's still just a straight shot for speeding. Your plan narrows this section of Yucca down, but that only serves to make it more dangerous for the oncoming cars, parked cars, and now bicyclists, because speeders can still speed through that section. Our city planners evidently don't know a whole lot about the mentality of West Side drivers, especially those drivers who have these loud and fast cars. Any long stretch of open road, no matter how narrow, as long as they can see no cops coming, that street is fair game for showing off their fast cars. Speeders don't care if it's a neighborhood street or not. They'll just flip the bird at those painted 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and hit the accelerator. To them, it's a challenge. Now, being the old guy that I am, I suggested they pay me the money that they were paying the expensive consulting firm. They should dump their plan and take my advice instead. Put several speed bumps in the area. Problem solved. Needless to say, they rejected my proposal. And they voiced their objections to installing speed bumps. What they said kind of left me muttering to myself, bullshit, bullshit.
Sir, this study was conducted by traffic planning experts with many years of experience.
Me raising my hand again. But do they have any common sense concerning wasteful spending? That was a bad idea. Objection number 1. Sir, did you know speed bumps cause accidents? Bullshit, bullshit. That was my bullshit detector going off again. That's because, to me, that sounds almost like saying knives and forks cause obesity. Speed bumps do not cause accidents. People who drive recklessly or too fast for the conditions cause accidents. Their objection number 2. Are you aware, sir, that Yucca Drive is an emergency vehicle response route? Adding speed bumps would severely hurt response times. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. If our city planners and politicians were really concerned about emergency vehicle response times in our city, they would have never approved and built the ART bus project. That project incorporates 10-inch high concrete barriers that prevent any vehicle going in any direction, including emergency vehicles, from navigating the most effective route along Central Avenue. And you're trying to con us into believing that adding 3 more speed bumps over a 3-block area where people speed the most is going to severely hurt emergency vehicle response times? Shit. I'm so confident in my rationale and bullshit detector that I have some $5 wagers I'd like to make with anyone in city government willing to take them. Bet number 1. The wide open side of the roundabouts that you've put in place will cause accidents. Ding, ding, ding. Oops. I already won that bet because it's already happened. Less than 4 days after the roundabouts were put in place, there was a crash. Bet number 2. I bet a bicyclist will be hit by a car and severely injured with this design. Bet number 3. Parked cars will be hit by speeding vehicles because the street is so narrow. Bet number 4. The vertical tube markers that will be put in place will constantly need to be replaced. At taxpayers' expense, of course. Heck, they'll probably have a contest to see who can knock down the most tubes and put it on Facebook or TikTok for everybody to see. Bet number 5. The crosswalk at Pat Hurley Park that was just recently installed, will rarely be used. Now, I have to admit, I have not seen, nor have I been able to find the overall cost of this traffic calming plan for Yucca Drive. But I'm pretty darn confident it cost a whole lot more than a few very well placed speed bumps. But we have to think beyond that. You see, once you add in the high cost of traffic accidents or injuries that might be caused by this traffic calming plan, the lawyers will come running. Well, heck, Your Honor, that street layout was so poorly designed and constructed, it caused my client a lifetime of pain and misery. But it's okay. Us taxpayers will foot the bill. After all, we have deep pockets. Albuquerque Rapid Transit, or as some affectionately call it, ART. Where do I start? Albuquerque is not a business-friendly city. If you're a business owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And ART is the perfect example why. The ART project not only killed many businesses during its construction, but it continues to destroy the profitability of hundreds of businesses along Central Avenue every day. But politicians and bureaucrats in this city don't care because their jobs are always safe no matter how difficult they make it for everyone else. The ART bus project has turned the world famous Route 66, or Central Avenue, however you want to call it, into what many people now call the ugliest street in Albuquerque. And I agree with them. They put two different bus routes, red and blue is what they call them, running in the same direction simultaneously up and down Central Avenue, sometimes running side by side, one on the outside lane, the other on the inside lane. To make it worse, they constructed a 10-inch high concrete barrier running right down the center of Central Avenue. That concrete barrier prevents vehicles and pedestrians from easily accessing a business on either side of the street. That miles-long concrete barrier has cost businesses on Central Avenue millions of dollars in lost revenue every year. Where the hell was the common sense in this decision of ART? Why would any city completely tear up one of America's most recognizable and famous roads, Route 66, and purposely make it so difficult for any business on that street to survive? My conclusion is because the city of Albuquerque just doesn't care. That brings me to the railroad, or as it has appropriately been named by so many New Mexicans, the train from hell. The rail runner is nothing more than a political con job that was forced upon New Mexico taxpayers. If you don't recognize that, then you really have your head buried in the sand. All you got to do is take a look and see who had their hand in it. Bill Richardson and his pay-per-play cronies. It is a deep, very deep hole, stealing money from New Mexicans to the tune of nearly $30 million every year. It will go down in history as the biggest money-wasting scheme in New Mexico history. A recent report showed that the train earned $2.8 million last fiscal year, but it cost $28.4 million to operate. That's a loss of over $25 million per year, and that's crazy. That's wasteful spending. That's lack of common sense. But your blood should really get boiling when you hear that things are only going to get progressively worse in the upcoming years. Like everything else, costs are rising. And very few people know it, but there are huge balloon payments of $112 million due in 2025. That's just 2 years away. And another $112 million due in 2026. Yippee! New Mexico taxpayers are on the hook for nearly $493 million in infrastructure payments for this train already. Shockingly, the Department of Transportation estimates the total debt repayment for this rail runner train alone, including principal and interest, is going to be, are you ready for this? Nearly $784 million. Who cares? We're already one of the poorest states in the whole country. What's another $784 million? Do you think for a minute that the politicians and bureaucrats who put this scheme together give a damn? Not on your life. We, you and me, the taxpayers, are footing the bill for nothing more than a political slush fund. It just never stops, folks. Never. Before I go, I gotta bring this one up. And you can click the link below to watch the KRQE expose on this particular stupid project. A local radio station disc jockey wants taxpayers to foot the bill for a metal music mobile museum. Woo! To the tune of $50,000. He submitted his idea to the city council with no business plan, no budget, no projection, nothing. And the city council said, okay, sure, why not? The taxpayers will pay for it. What happened to the good old days, the common sense days, when an entrepreneur would sit down and come up with an idea, put it on paper, work out all the numbers to make sure it was going to be a viable business concept. Then they'd put in their own money or solicit investors to start the business. Ah, stupid me. I forgot. We're not in the land of enchantment. We're in the land of handouts. I could go on and on. Like the Bridge to Nowhere, the El Camino Real tourist stop and museum, out in the middle of nowhere for millions of dollars. Manny Aragon, the courthouse is downtown. In New Mexico government, it all boils down to crony capitalism, corruption, Democrat political deception, willful ignorance, and lies. So, where did all this corrupt leadership lead New Mexico? Well, a recent study of all 50 states in 2021 was conducted by a company called WalletHub. It compared 52 indicators of livability, and it determined that New Mexico was the worst state in the United States to live. Go figure. New Mexico government agencies and politicians have no common sense whatsoever. And worse yet, they don't give a damn.